So do you have Cubase Master, John?
Don't talk to me about Cubase today.
Uh-oh. I have some really awesome videos I can send you if you'd like.
It's not actually the problem of using Cubase.
Your computer, right?
My computer, my keyboard has decided it wants to randomly stick notes.
Right. And I heard you were talking about the dongle, right? That's a...
Yeah, dongle's working happily now, but one of my keyboards was just randomly pushing out a stream of MIDI. The other keyboard was just randomly sticking notes. Even if I wasn't playing that keyboard, I was just playing back.
It doesn't make sense because it's just a signal. I don't understand.
I know. I agree with you. Turning that keyboard off solved the issue because I had to turn it back on to record. And the only way to fix it is a complete reboot. And then it works for a little while and then it messes up. So it's clearly an OS issue. It's not a hardware issue. But
that's frustrating with the infallible operating system.
Yes, I know.
John, are you talking about your alphanumeric keyboard or your musical keyboard?
My musical keyboard, my Native Instruments S88. Weird. And sometimes it works beautifully. Other times I'll play a couple of notes and they won't stop. Other times I'll have recorded something and I'll play it back, and if the keyboard is just switched on, even if I'm not touching it, notes will stick.
Have you got a sustain pedal connected in line?
I do.
Yeah, because sometimes mine reverses polarity, so like 1 is on and 0 is off, and sometimes if I plug things in the wrong order, it comes up as always sustain.
I checked that, and I'm actually seeing the note on. It's just holding the notes down.
Hey guys.
Hey Gary.
Hello.
How are you?
Gary.
Good. Good to see you.
Very good.
Good to see you guys. I saw your email, John, and I hear you talking about the keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be good to get over the hump of technology, won't it?
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
I wish I was more technical sometimes.
Coming from a super geek.
You'll just have to sing every note into your program, John.
There you go. I'm going to stick with GarageBand on my iPad.
So let's see, do we have Dave, Mr. Thyroid yet? We've got Mr. PDF there. Hey, Sean, I see your name.
Hey, Gary. How we doing?
Good. You got video up?
Working on it.
Okay, cool. Well, in the meantime, until Dave gets on, I can go over my, there he is, perfect timing. Saved by the bell. David Forlano, Mr. Thyroid, how are you?
He's got no audio yet. Give him a moment.
Right. There he is.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, Mr. Forlano, how are you?
I'm doing good.
No more Forlani.
No more Forlani. That's funny. So what's going on? How's everybody doing? How's everybody's week?
Good. How's David?
How about you?
It was good. You know, weather's getting a little chilly out here, but, you know, it's still good.
Where are you located again, David?
I'm in Connecticut.
Ah.
I'm about 50 minutes from New York City.
Yeah. You getting snow over there?
Yeah, we had a little snow earlier in the week. Nothing. Well, I didn't get. We were supposed to have some huge blizzard, but I didn't get too much of that. But a little bit north of us did. I'm by the shoreline, so I don't get as much. But we get freezing ice.
Wow. You know, I like the message from Deb Wolf this week on getting through the accountability, and then what we need to do in the first hour. And then I like how you said it, Deb. You go, and let's let Gary jam. I was like, well, nobody ever put it that way as a mentor. I like jamming as a mentor. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you guys think?
I like it. I mean,
Makes sense to it.
I was kind of thinking, David, what I was actually envisioning was somehow maybe even cutting the accountability to like 15 minutes, and we could all go into that document ourselves and update, and then just quickly do a recap of it. And if there's anything that we're struggling with, we can kind of focus on that so that we don't take quite so much time.
Sure. So
know.
I mean, I'm happy to go through my line, and then I guess how everybody's listed, if they just want to go through theirs really quickly instead of me asking, would that help?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if everybody has it pulled up and if they're ready to go.
Yeah, you can just shoot their name. I think that'll help push it along.
Okay, great. So I'll get into it then. So I idea generate 5 songs, close 3 songs, and pitch 2. I pitched the 2, I closed 2, and I want to say I idea generated, I think 3 or 4. So I'm hoping to close my 3rd one today. And then what I slacked on in idea generating songs, I made up for. I backed up all my stuff today. I reorganized all my documents that I've been working on the last 3 weeks. So I'm nice and organized now again. And I have everything backed up. That conversation with Gary, what was it, 2 weeks ago, I think, opened my eyes. Now I'm going to set myself a calendar reminder to have myself every week, I think, before, so it can, it took about an hour to do, it should only take a few minutes if I do it regularly. So I can set myself a reminder, and then every week I can just back that up. It'll only take a few minutes, while I'm cooking or something and doing something with the wife, then I can just have that do its thing in the background. So next week, hopefully I can, do another, batch of 3 or 4 songs. I'll update my stuff in there, and hopefully I can get more done than I did this week.
Awesome.
So next up on the list is Knight.
That's me. So I didn't work on the 4-track song this week. I did the replay of the Mastermind that I missed last week, and was just blown away by the reverb trick that you showed, Gary, with the aux track and everything. So I was inspired to go back and look at a song that I'd been working on that was not for licensing, just a music song with lyrics and vocals and stuff. And I tried the trick with the vocals, and I found I was having a really hard time with making sure if when the compressor was working right. I couldn't tell sometimes if it was happening or not, and I'd turn it off and turn it on and try things. But then that was when I soloed the track. But then when I turned the full track on to listen to it again, and I had it off, I'm like, hey, that sounds good. But when I turned it on, it was like, whoa, it really made a difference that I couldn't tell in solo, which seemed kind of weird to me. I don't know if that was my mind, doing something, but it really seemed to kick in then. So I spent a lot of time doing that and mess with it. And then I, of course, fell down the rabbit hole of, let me try some stuff with the bass on there. Yeah, do the other things with things. But I did continue with the home studio Bible a little bit, not every single day. But I got 2 more chapters in, and the music production fundamentals video series, I did a couple more of those, and looked at some theory. I found a couple of what is this site? It's Muglin Works or something like that. Read through a couple of pages of that and looked at a couple of videos on YouTube. So yeah, not super productive week, but pretty good. And I hope to continue on with that, except take it a little bit further and actually get some tracks finished this week, at least one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Knight. So
Thanks.
next up, we got Greg Goss.
Yes, yeah. Well, I fell a little bit short on my goals. I think I was a little too ambitious last week with the finishing 3 songs, remixing another song. I think I've come to realize that, 1 track a week is really my reality. Because you know what? If I do more than that, I get into writing stuff that's not quite going to make the grade. I mean, that's been my pattern. It's like this week I worked really hard on 1 song and I pitched it today. And, I have a lot of confidence in it. And that's just the way I want to feel about everything that I write, because when I try to do too much, It's like, yeah, I can get it done, but if you have a pile of stuff that's not going to get licensed, what's the point? So I'm gonna draw back on that a little bit. So for next week, I'm just gonna try to do one really solid song, maybe work on another one, do some more pitching. I did pitch that song that I wrote this week. I pitched that this morning, so I'm going to continue to try to pitch stuff. So and really my thing is just doing committing 30 hours a week to this endeavor, and so I'm going to commit to that, and I have done that consistently for about 8 months now. So
nice.
Can I interject real quick and ask one question, because this has been weighing on my mind a little bit. Greg, you had mentioned about, you finished the song and you pitched it, and I noticed that a few people before have mentioned that they, pitched a song here or pitched a song there, and it seems that most of the places that I've looked at when they're asking for pitches, it's like they want a couple of songs, like 3 or 4 or something like that. Am I interpreting that wrong, or is it possible to just go into, or are you pitching to places that you're already established with when you do a single song?
Well, in this case, I actually submitted it to a taxi opportunity. It's a specific brief through taxi. So that's how I've done it, taxi, broad jam, and then I'm just kind of getting into pitching to libraries as well. So
I got
that's what happened on this particular one.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Next up, we have, I don't see Randall on, I don't think. Sean Original, what's up, man?
Going on, man. How you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I got my 3 done for this week, but similar to Greg, especially for the way December's looking for me, I'm gonna have to trim it down a little bit just so I can give full attention to making quality music as well as other commitments. So I think for the rest of the month, I'll be down for 2 tracks a week, and I've also got some homework from Gary as well that I still need to work on as well. So yeah, we'll add that to the list too.
Added. Awesome. Thanks, Sean.
Yep.
Next up, we have Eldon.
I diverged kinda. I've stayed with my Gary studies, and it's funny because as we hear Gary speak, I see him say all the things that I see and hear him say in all the previous things before, which, because he's always consistent, makes you know real. But I was really overwhelmed with the Eddie course and trying to mix this song with a lot of tracks, and so I wasn't really successful, but I have learned so much this week, and I have a direction to go. I do need to get a better impression in EQ in there. It's just more practice and experience, but I need to produce quality tracks. So that makes me, like he said, if you don't have something that's real, you have to make it real. So the struggle is to get my production higher. So that is my real focus.
Awesome. Quality better. Good stuff. Thank you, Eldon. And next up, I see Steve down there. What's up, Steve? You're still muted.
You got me now?
There you go.
Okay. All right. Some of you may have seen my post in Same Page. I'm looking for a monitor. I've been using a TV for a while, and I have to replace that. So if anybody has a good suggestion for a display monitor I'm using a Mac Mini, so I don't have a screen. With Logic, I'm open to suggestions. Other than that, and let's see. I restarted the How to Get a Killer Vocal Sound with Gary Gray's video series, and I've got several, like 3 videos into that. So I'd gone through it once before, but as I said last week, I'm getting more out of it.
Okay, cool. So you're just going through that, and then anything else that you're looking to complete for next week?
Well, this is kind of an old goal or assignment, and that is to do 2 tracks. and make both of them sound good. I mean, one song that has, in this case, it would be a drum set and a bass guitar. So I'm mostly done with the bass guitar. I handled the timing first, and then the, let's see, and then I was working on volume after that. And I added a little compression because I thought I did what I could with the volumes. The bass is almost done, then I'm going to hit the drums.
Got it. Cool. So I got you for completing 2 tracks and with it, all the stuff that you know you've been learning.
Yep. Well, I'm still working on that. You can put me down for completing the 2 tracks, and I'd say complete the killer vocal sound and get started on mixing fundamentals or music fundamentals.
Got it. Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Next up, we have Micheline. How are you today?
Hey, how are you? I'm good. You?
Good, thanks.
So, yeah, I did rewrite that song I wasn't really happy with. So, yeah, I got to finish that. I finished the instrumental. I did one more. And I didn't do the pitching. I had to catch up on that. Learning Logic, well, it's more than just Logic. What I do is I make sure I learn something every day, whether it's on composition, mixing, or it could be Logic, but it's just my goal is to learn a new nugget every day, which I do. So for this week, I'm going a bit along with some other comments that I heard. I'm trying to also improve quality, but I want to keep my muscles onto getting new ideas. So for this week, I want to, write a new one, like idea generate one, and write another one that I will also complete by using some of the new notions that Gary has been sharing. So I want to start applying these new things. And yeah, I gotta get to the pitching. So that's one that I gotta push myself to do this week. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Good stuff. Thank you. And next up, we have John.
Hello, hello. So
thanks for the account, by the way.
No problem, no problem. So I was supposed to be finishing a song for Eddie, and with travel and equipment problems, I didn't get that done. I had the song in my head, or the track in my head. I was trying to find, I had some complex chords I was hearing. I was in the middle of trying to find them, and suddenly I couldn't get my keyboard to send key off commands. And I've been wrestling it with it since then.
Yeah.
So same goal for this coming week, plus I've got a ton more homework from Gary as well.
Got it. Homework. Thanks, John. And I don't see Jacques. Deb Wolf, hello.
Hey. My dog died last night. So
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So I wrote a song for him that I want to actually do. So that's, I just wrote it. I didn't do any. I want to add some instrumental parts to it and finish that up. I finished my homework for Eddie before he got sick, so that was good. Although it was 47 tracks, so it was a challenge. I'm gonna go back to it and work on some parallel compression to that other mix, and and I want to finish. I have another class that I'm doing. I don't know how you say it. If it's Udemy or I don't know how you say it, but it's a Udemy Logic class that I have several more classes I need to finish on, real basic stuff. So I want to finish that if I can this week, just so that, when I'm doing Eddie's class or whatever, I'm not quite as overwhelmed because it's more intermediate than beginner. So I want to try and catch up a little bit if I can. But yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you, Deb. Hope everything goes well. I'm sorry to hear about the news. So we have Wendy, are you there? I see you down there, but with muted and no video. Wendy?
Her mute came off, but no audio.
Well, when she's ready, she can jump in and just interrupt, and she can.
Good. And we're at 119. Let's try to make the answers fast.
Yep.
And then we can move on.
I have Angelina's down here. She's feeling sick and is going to continue her homework. I don't see Janine. I don't see Creator Alexander. Maniko, how are you?
Good. How's everybody going?
Good. We got you down here to finish 5 and pitch 5 and to do some Gary's homework.
Yeah, well, I actually have the I couldn't get the songs the import in Logic, so I've got them to import through Pro Tools, which I haven't gotten to the AB, and I'm gonna do that tonight. But I did finish 5 songs and pitched 5 songs. So
okay, good.
I do my ABN tonight, and I'm gonna try my best to shoot for another because I just actually started trying to pitch the last couple of weeks, and I heard back from one of the libraries, so I'll be trying to do the same thing this week, finishing 5, pitching 5, and
okay.
I'll do my ABN tonight.
Good stuff. Thank you, Maniko, for the contribution.
Appreciate it.
Yep. And then I think that's everybody on the list, but I see Dale Proctor up there. What's going on?
Hey, hello, everybody. It's my first time with this new group, so hello. Yeah, I've got a goal for the coming week, which is kind of like renewing a 40-year-old goal, and that's to practice my saxophone because, you know, all of the other work I've been doing is great, and I feel I'm really moving forward, and then I get my horn out to record something that sounds horrible, and so, you know, that's no good. So got to work that in, you know, 20 minutes a day at least, just to build strength and endurance.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got a whole bunch of recording to do, you know, once I get back into shape. So that's what I'm also word for word reading the Logic manual and kind of, you know, stopping when I find something new and going in and playing with it. So I've got a whole bunch of empty projects, excuse me, that are really just, you know, they get deleted. And then I kind of forget too, sometimes I was working on something today and I thought, well, how do I do that? And I just learned it last week. So I got to, you know, remember to really ingest things and be patient with myself. So yeah. That's, you know, more, I guess, goals to do with motivation, you know, to just keep on track and it's going to be okay. Like there's no rush, but it's sometimes hard, you know, to, like somebody said, going down a rabbit hole. I've been down a few this week and got to keep out of those.
It's been known to happen. Awesome. So Dale, I don't know if we have you. Do we have you on same page?
No, not on this group.
Okay, so I'll pop Sean's email in the chat if unless he gets around to it, and
I can pop it in there.
Awesome, and then we can get you in on the same page, so you can get access the document, and then you can be part of all of our interactions and sharing.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yep, and then if you want, we can get to a composer spotlight for you next week. I don't think we've heard any of your music.
Yeah, no, I haven't shared anything yet. I'm happy to do a couple. I don't have my DAW online. I'm using a different computer, so I need to figure out the technical aspect of that. I've been keeping that system as offline as possible. So
yeah,
it'd be good to try though.
Yeah, what I can do is I'll share my email address, and if you want to just share an MP3 or anything, that'd be fine. We can just do a screen share, and then you can just play
okay.
MP3. Yeah, so we can I'll jot that down for next week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dale. And I think last but not least, we have Sam. What do you got for goals to complete this week?
This week I want to complete between 7 and 10 tracks I have been working on already. And for the most part, I have to master them, and then I want to release them as an album.
To release as album. Awesome. Good stuff.
Plus, I'm working on next to that on I'm building a course to work on iOS with all the music apps and to learn people how to produce music, because you can nowadays produce completely professional sounding music just on your phone.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't know how to do that.
Well, once you get the course up, let us know. I'd love to watch it.
Yes.
And last but not least, Gary Gray.
Okay, so this was a good, productive week for me. I finished a major epic deadline for a Disney and 20th Century Fox, which you'll actually hear today. You remember that gospel choir track, the stem? Well, I have the whole thing is done, you know, with all the music. You'll see on the PDF that we'll go over today, that particular track is at the top of the scale. And it's something that's a good goal to work towards because it has a full gospel choir in it, lead vocals, full orchestra, a rock band, electronic music, and the rest of the kitchen. It's all in there. So that was definitely a challenge, and that was finished. So that was finished yesterday. And then 99 tracks I finished, which were just submixes for 11 tracks that Aaron and I, that I produced for Aaron Davison. He got 11 tracks accepted into Who's the Boss, which is a really high quality library. And we're excited about that. And so I finished those submixes. And then also, Micheline, I'm working on the rest of yours as well. She has some great tracks that I helped her produce, and I'm doing submixes for her. So that's one of the things I want to finish this week. And this is going to be a good week, an especially good week, because it's Friday the 13th, and every Friday the 13th, I always have a lucky day. So I'm looking forward to it.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So other than what you just said about getting into the documents, I know we have on the list for Greg to share. So whatever you want to get to first, Gary.
Okay. So, all right, we'll take a look at this. I'm going to bring up, for those of you who saw the message that I left, I just put a reminder to read PDF number 2, and I'm going to bring that up right now. Let me get it up on my screen. Okay.
And while Gary's getting that up, does anybody have any questions or anything before we get into the weeds?
I just want to say real quick for John, I listened to the updated version of that piece you've been working on, and it's been stuck in my head ever since. It's gorgeous.
And I'll put a plug in there for John and for music theory, because I mentioned this before to you guys, but John created that melody because he was doing a lesson in two things, okay, which is covered under counterpoint. And one is how to write a canis firmus, which is a main melody. So it's a theme, it's a melody. And there's rules that you follow. You follow the rules while you're studying, and you don't have to follow them when you're composing. But what's interesting, John, isn't it, that by following those rules, within those rules, that's the exact melody that you came up with.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so you learn a canis firmus, which is how to write a melody. And then number 2 is you learn counterpoint, which is how to then write another melody that goes along with that one. And you do it in steps. And when you then add some knowledge about orchestration and arranging, which I'm going over with John as well as production, then you can create something like Greg that really sticks, you know, and moves you. I mean, he played it for me yesterday during his lesson. And when the big, you know, where all the bass comes in and the whole thing just goes like epic, I literally got chills. So John, great job. All right. And Steve, did you want to take, or David, did you want to take any more questions before I dig in?
If anybody has any.
So I have a question about how somehow I think we need to incorporate maybe 10 or 15 minutes into, you know, how's the updates for what Steve's working on versus, you know, any of the things for the actual same page. How can we maybe organize it so that we can participate through that a little bit as well? Also, somebody, I think, Steve, I'll do the documentation if you want me to for the submission process because it's outdated, but I'm not really sure if I would write something up, if it would be right. So if you guys want to leave it to me to just create my own new way, that's fine. But, you know, if your way was working, I just need to know what it was. Because when I first submitted it just didn't seem to work well. So maybe there's something around that we can kind of incorporate in this as far as, hey, we're moving this song from closer or from idea generator to close to intermediate to closer or whatever we're doing. Maybe we can kind of take some kind of accountability for that part as well. Since that's the collaboration piece, I don't know, just a thought.
That's good, and I agreed with you when you made your post about that. And maybe, well, actually, I have not been very familiar with all the ins and outs of Same Page because when I first went on Same Page, my operating system was outdated and it did all kinds of weird stuff. So one of the things I have to do is go through and see what kind of things you're talking about. I know it said you could upload a track, but
you can't.
I agree. It would be better now to say upload a link, and then it'll take up less space, and it'll actually be possible to do so.
Right. And do we want to actually do? I mean, in my thoughts, why upload all your tracks to somebody for everybody to have if only one person's going to work on it? So maybe you just upload an MP3 of the output, you know, here's that. And then whoever says they're going to work on it, then they can just send it to them directly instead of, you know, taking up the space on the same time.
That sounds good to me. I'd like to open this up to anybody have any other ideas on this other than just put up an MP3 as a idea generated. And then anybody that says, yes, I'd like to work on it, then we can make arrangements for them to get the full package. Right. Let's see what anybody has to say.
I would say just put up the link rather than the MP3.
Yes,
the link
that's
to
what
the
I meant.
MP3.
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
good.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But I think they're like we also need to set some standards on, you know, the process of how that's going to work. So I could put up a link in that, you know, nobody wants to work on, but then I hear there's crickets, so I don't know that you've even listened and you don't want to work on it. So maybe there's a way that if you actually listen to it, you can say no, don't have enough time, don't like it, have no interest, or something, so that, and maybe give a reason why if you wanted to, or just say something. You know, because I don't know how many, since Eddie left, have we submitted anything? Has anybody even done any of that? No, I don't think so. So I think that piece of it, we still need to try to, you know, incorporate somehow. And maybe we can talk about that as, you know, a 5-minute update for an accountability is, hey, did anybody see this song that's out there? Who wants to work on it? And honestly, Gary, I think maybe it would be awesome if you could, since you've heard all of our music, if you could say, oh, I think, you know, John and Dale might work really, their skill sets could blend well. Maybe you could assign us. And I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but maybe it's a thought.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely willing to do that. And I think, let's see, have I heard everyone's music so far? Almost everybody. Angelina, I don't know if I've heard your music. You can write in the, did I listen to any of your music yet, Angelina? I'll look in the chat. And then Sem, I've listened to some, no, not yet, huh, Sem? Okay.
I'm not sure if you listened to some of my
Yeah.
music.
No, that's a good idea. So we'll work out a system. And I think it's good to have it in this call. I agree with you, Deb, that we continually push forward the streamlining of what we're doing on same page and keep it going and keep it more effective and get it so that the results are popping out the other end. So we're getting some placements.
Yeah.
So,
And the thing,
yeah.
the other thing is, you know, that's leading into the whole brief thing, because I see a page called briefs. I don't know what it's for. Don't know how to submit to you guys. I get briefs, you know, so sometimes, but they're very quick turnaround most of the time. So, yeah, but not always. So I could post something, but again, I'd need the process to know, because I'd possibly let you guys do it, but I usually don't give a brief to 20 people. I'll say, here, you guys, somebody work on it. And I have producers that work on things already.
Yeah, no, that would be great to get some briefs from you. And then there'll be briefs from me coming up in the near future. My music supervisor work right now has to do with clearances. I'm doing a lot of clearance work.
Fun.
And so, and that just happened to be the first jobs that I got for films, clearances for films. So, but then I'll be getting specific briefs, you know, where I actually need music, and then we can start getting that pipeline going. But if you can get some briefs up there, Deb.
But like, I would want to know what the process is, you know, like, you know, let's set the process up before I start, you know, because if there's a brief that goes up there, is anybody going to look at it? And then I've kind of wasted my opportunity because I didn't give it to somebody else.
Right.
That's my biggest thing.
Yeah. Well, do you take bids, like, or do you do exclusive briefs? Like, will you give a brief to, even if you're composers, do you give a brief to 2 of them at a time,
Usually,
or only 1 at a time?
Depends. It depends. But usually, because I know somebody's going to work, you know, I kind of know their workload.
Yeah. Yeah, here's what I would suggest on that. Let's say you give a brief to one of your guys that you always work with. Okay, this is just a suggestion. Also give it to this group. Okay, and then you'll have, possibly, if somebody jumps on it, they like it, they can do it, they're able to do it, they're able to do it fast, then you have 2 bids coming in, and you can choose. You know, so that's an idea.
And there's, you know, there's never any guarantee on all of these, but it's
exactly
the opportunity, you know, yeah. So
yeah,
I would say if there's any brief posted, to just make sure that you put a hard deadline on it, and then that way, whoever's if people are busy, then they know they won't have time. But whoever is not busy, well, I'm assuming would reach out to you and let you know.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, you know, like, if I put it on the brief page, does anybody go there, or do I have to go then and say, hey, I just put a brief up, guys?
I mean, I've got updates from every page that's posted on, so I see them if they're posted.
Yep, that's the way same page is set up.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I see the emails come in, you know, I think it says to everyone, whatever.
Okay.
So I would suggest, Deb, that you put in capital letters, you know, and maybe with some asterisks, you know, 3 before and 3 after in capital letter, brief. And does that get translated to the subject of the email, David?
I believe it does. Am I correct, Sean?
Yep, it'll tell you what page that message is being posted to. So if it's posted in briefs, it'll say briefs, or if it's everyone, it'll say everyone. Or idea generators. Whatever the title of that chat page is what it'll show first on the email.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I would suggest going into same page, changing the title of briefs to capitals with 3 asterisks before and 3 after, so that when we get those that come in, it's like it shows up in your inbox and it's like, hey, brief, you know.
Okay.
And who does that? Who does the changes inside of same page?
I do.
Okay, so that's something you could do.
Yep.
All right, great. Okay, and so go ahead, Deb. Any other ideas you have?
No, that's it. Thanks. Sorry, I took up so much time.
No, that was good.
But I mean, I feel like this kind of discussion for maybe 10 minutes or so for things
Yes.
that, for processes and things that, especially for the new people, they have no idea what we're doing, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so they can at least hear and then kind of meet with us, you know, one-on-one later to catch up if they want.
Yeah. Okay, good. And so, Sean, are you the same page guy? Is that what you are?
Yep.
Okay. Why don't you share your screen right now? Let's just do 2 minutes and do a tour of same page.
Sure.
Okay. Because
I was just gonna ask that.
good. Yeah, because I think some of the newer people, and even for me, it's going to be helpful.
I'll get that set up here.
Great. I think, Deb, it's a great idea to include this at least 5-10 minutes to go over this every
And
week.
I think that whoever's posting videos, if we can tag this video, so any new person comes on, tell them, go to this video and look at this, you know, between, you know, 20 minutes in, you'll find out more about Same Page so that we don't have to repeat it over and over again. It's because we're already recording this, right? And so we can just say, hey, let's go here, a new person, this will tell you about Same Page.
Good.
Can you guys see my screen here?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is the home screen or the home page you guys would see when you log into Same Page on the web platform. And this will show you all the teams that you'll be included in, which is all the teams that everyone gets added to when they're added to Same Page. So clicking on any of the teams, you'll get sent to basically the home page of that team, which would include documents. So you can see some of Gary's PDFs here, the basics of mixing, for example, right? Or the scores that we had in terms of the different categories that Gary will be going over with us.
So you noticed I put those in folders. I don't know if you noticed that, but they were all there. So I just made folders for them so that we could keep putting Gary's stuff together so it wouldn't get lost.
Nice.
Thanks, Deb.
So I guess Steve and Deb are Mr. and Mrs. Same Page.
I'm not Same Page. I'm process more.
Okay.
Yep. So all Gary's documents, as Deb said, are in this folder, Gary Gray Documents, as well as some of the other documents related to everyone. So things that everyone needs to see related to the group in general will be posted in this team or in this section. That's what they're called, the different teams there that everyone's a part of. All right, so the brief section that Deb was talking about, if you go into the chat, you can see some of Eddie's previous briefs in terms of what, you know, different publishers he was working with or songs that he was looking for. He would post in there, he'd post reference examples, you know, the genre, and then he'd give a deadline as well. Right. So Deb, this might be, you know, the way you might want to go about it too. Like Gary said, if you have producers that you're already working with, maybe you can post that brief in here as well, just to see if anybody else is available to jump on them and see if you get different bids that way. In the past too, how we had it set up was that we had the idea generators that would set tracks and they would post them in this chat for people to, you know, for closers or anyone who was interested in finishing that track to get the link to it. Or in the past we were able to upload, but now it's only links that we can post on Same Page. So people would post the links here and whoever was interested would say, yep, I'm interested in that one in this chat room, and then go ahead and take it on and get it closed. Here we have...
Sean, did you mention that there was a way to download before that you can't now? Was there a change?
Yeah, there was a change. So this was Same Page, this program. We started with a trial basis that gave us full functionality, which included being able to upload zip files and packages and things like that. We still have all the main functionality of it, but now we can't upload into like a cloud-based server. So we just post links into the platform.
I see. How much does it cost with the whole shebang?
If I remember correctly, it's based per user. So the more it grows, the more expensive it would be. What that actual number is, I don't remember off the top of my head.
All right, you can let me know that later. Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you know later.
Cool.
And then the other teams we have here are finished music. So when people would collaborate on stuff together, they would post it in this chat room here in terms of, tracks that were being worked on for briefs. Hardware and software talk is like it says, right? So if anyone's got some, videos that they made or saw, or different pieces of hardware that they have issues with or would like to recommend to the group, they can post it here. Or if John's having computer issues and he wants to vent, this could be a good place that he could do that. And then for open collaboration, this is just a place where if anyone just wants to collaborate just in general without it necessarily being related to briefs, this is what this section was here for. And then resources, tips, and tricks would be additional teaching tools or things that people thought were cool related to learning music production. So that's just a breakdown of the teams. People can send each other private messages with this chat function here. You can start a new one, find the person you want to send a chat to, or set it in a group chat, and then you can send messages that way. And if both people are on the platform at the same time, calls can actually be made. I personally haven't tried that functionality, but there's plenty of guides on the Same Page website that show how to do all of these things and use the teams and create pages.
Is that like a Zoom chat within Same Page?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a basic overview of Same Page. Does anyone have any questions or anything they want me to go through in specific?
Yeah, Sean, is there a way, like the accountability format that David put down? I love that we can actually access it, but is there a way that we can make it some kind of user friendly so that my name is always there and the dates are somehow like an Excel spreadsheet or something, so that it's just we can update it ourselves, so that when we go in and then it's just like, oh, okay, we're still being accountable and we're still talking about it, but it's just not all the work. Not that David's complaining about it, but I mean, I feel like somehow, like I started if you keep scrolling down, I started accountability for today. And I was going to start my own name, but I didn't know how to get the bullet in. So I was like, all right, I wanted to keep the same format. I doing it on my phone, and you don't have all those options on your phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
sense. So Deb, you were talking earlier about like a Google Doc, a shared Google Doc.
Yeah, and Google you can do that.
If you would prefer a shared Google Doc, we could do that. But to add a bullet point, it would just be, you'd probably need to get on the web to be able to do it. And anyone can come into this page here that David's created and edit it. This is not locked. I don't think we even have the functionality for that. But anyone on the team here,
so you can do that.
Page can come in here and
So that's, I just didn't know. Yeah, on my phone you don't have all those things. Okay, so you could just have to do it on your computer.
Hey David, I wonder if you could create a template with everybody's name.
Yeah.
So that just before we start each call, if you drop in a new section, and then people can type their own things in there as we're working.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. That's basically what I do as we're going anyway. So, what I can do is I can create a folder, and then that way, each week can be separately labeled. So that way, it's just not a bunch of documents on that one page. I can put an accountability folder, and then each document can, we can just upload a template, and then everything each week will have its own individual page.
Perfect.
Good stuff.
Great. Cool, Sean. I could listen to your voice all day. You should have a radio show.
The bass from my speakers comes out.
Any other questions with Same Page?
Sam.
Yes. Does everyone have the same rights to do things in same page, or is it different?
Everyone has the ability to edit pages, add pages, post in the chat, do everything except uploading files. And I'm pretty much the only one that I think can add people. I think that's the only difference.
Okay.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe this is just because the way I was set up, but if you want to belong to all of those different groups, you actually have to go in yourself and ask to be accepted, I guess, because I wasn't in the briefs chat until like last week. I wasn't in a lot of the other ones until I went through and checked my name, and I did it and then said, please add me.
Interesting. There might be a way for me to just put everyone in each team. That might be faster.
Okay.
So I'll add that to my list. I'll give a crack at that at the end
So
of the
I didn't even
call.
see
And
the
if that
brief
doesn't
thing
work,
until
I'll
I
just
went, oh,
post
let's
it in
go
the chat.
look at there. So that's where, that's where it was a little confusing for me.
Cool. And then I have a question. Deb, do you have any live ongoing briefs right now that you could type into the brief section?
I don't, I mean, one that was due like at 4 o'clock. Yeah. So, and it's all on my other computer. So I can look, the next live one I have, I'll type it in.
Great.
But again, most of the ones that I get that are like that I get on Friday and they're due on Monday.
Right.
So
Give
really
us that
quick.
brief. Yeah, give us that brief so we just have some reality on what.
Okay.
I know everyone's totally different, but
Yes.
it'll be great just to hear like a brief.
Okay.
Yes, but also if you get a brief on Friday and it's due on Monday, but someone already has a song ready that fits to the brief, then it's not a problem that it's really short.
I mean, that's what happens most of the time is I go to my catalog and go, oh, I have a song that fits there. And if I don't, then, start building a catalog to different types of music.
Yeah.
So
what was the 4 p.m. brief? Just curious.
EDM.
And was it anything specific?
It was a different type of EDM. It was.
Do you have the wording of the brief there?
I have to go to my other computer, my other room.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
well, yeah, just
on the computer.
Just describe it.
I was, an EDM track. They gave us 2 song samples.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want, I can just go get my other computer and forward my message. But yeah.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, good. All right. So did anyone else have any questions or comments, ideas on the same page?
I have one comment. I noticed that when I was trying to get to know some of our fellow members on their personal pages there, when I was looking at the app on my phone, I would tap to maybe look at a Facebook page or something, and it would take me into edit mode. Like if I'm not careful, I'm going to edit their page. And I know Sean mentioned something about some pages maybe can or cannot be locked, or maybe we don't have that functionality. But I just wanted to say something about that in case if anyone encounters it. Just be careful if you're tapping around, particularly on your phone, that you might could change something by accident.
That's a good point. Then to reiterate, these pages are not locked. So just like we were able to go in and edit the accountability, you could accidentally edit someone's personal page. So,
all right.
And if that happens, there's an undo button. It's just that back arrow. Just be sensitive to that. Thanks.
Yeah, we might find out next week that Knight Berman won a Grammy Award in his bio.
That's right. You never know.
I was going to say, if it makes it better, I don't mind.
Yeah, if it makes it better, leave it, right?
And I'm just going to throw this out because I really feel like this group is really so good, but I still feel like we don't all know each other very well. So maybe we can assign ourselves accountability to go listen to 2 other people's links from their bio or whatever, which means that if you don't have your bio up, you have to put your bio up. as your first step, but then we can each rotate through. Hey, I'm going to go through Greg's and Dale's. I'm going to go through, John's and this week, and I'm going to listen to their music. So that we can, start to learn each other's stuff a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. From what you just said, Deb, maybe we can do something where like once a month or once every 2 months or something, we do like a 30-second cue. Everybody has a 30-second cue, and we listen literally to everybody's music, because it wouldn't take a long time. And it just tells me so much about people when I hear their music. Do you know what I mean? For what we're doing. What do you guys think?
That's awesome.
I see some
that's a good
faces
idea.
that are like, Deb, get off of here.
It'll be fun too.
What did you say, Deb?
I said, I see some of your faces that are like, oh, why did we invite Deb to this group?
Not at all.
For your awesome ideas, that's why.
Yeah, those were looks of gratitude, Deb.
Okay.
That's how we look when we're happy.
Yeah, she's like, I hate to see what you look like when you're sad.
I know, right? Hey, at least you're making me laugh. That's okay. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. No, this is awesome. This is great. I think this is good. So, well, I'm ready to plow forward if you guys are. Yep.
Jam time.
All right, here we go. Jam time. So I'm going to share my screen. And by the way, John Landells, thank you. John actually mentored me this week on the fact that Same Page has its own whiteboard. And he showed me how to use that. So that was awesome.
Zoom.
What?
Zoom.
I'm sorry, Zoom. Yeah. See, he's a good mentor. He's correcting me already. All right. Can you see the difference between finished tracks and masterpiece recordings?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so this was the PDF homework for this week. And I'm going to actually go right down to the bottom to begin with. We're going to work from the product backwards. So there's a list it's an echelon of difficulty. So it's a list starting with the most simple types of mixes, and that works all the way up to the most difficult. And it starts with one solo instrument. And by the way, that solo instrument would be no percussion or drums, because percussion and drums are a very specialized type of mixing that are not necessarily basic and simple. When you learn about them, they become basic and simple, but they don't start out that way. And so it would be a non-percussion, non-drum solo instrument. That's where you start. And I just wanted to say one thing about that. If people want, and I hear this, which is awesome. I've heard from the group this week, people talking about the balance between quantity and quality. And I love that. I want to remind everyone that Deb Wolf, one of our members, has a solo instrument track that is just piano. And it's earned her $30,660 in the last 3 years. So to think that you have to go all the way to the end of this thing and make super huge epic production tracks in order to make good money is not true. And so one of the ways that you can keep your quantity and quality going is to never lose sight of the beginning of this ladder, solo instrument. And that when somebody creates a track that's one instrument that really creates a strong emotional impact, well, guess what? They created strong emotional impact with one solo instrument. That's the power of music. And Deb, you did a wonderful job on that piece. You know, I was always curious, what was the song? What was the track that you made all that money on? You know, then you played it for me. I'm like,
I don't know how she did. That was a fluke.
Yeah, and it's awesome. An awesome fluke. So, okay, so that's the bottom of the ladder, the beginning of the list, whatever you want to call it. And as we move up, it gets, you know, step by step. And this is one of the points I want to make today. And I said it in the Same Page post that I put. which is if you take steps that are too big, you can easily get a loss. You can get step backwards. You can create confusion. So I really strongly suggest that you find out where you are on this list of difficulty and be honest, and then start there and just move up to the next one. Like, okay, so if you're good at, like, you're good at doing a solo instrument, so then do 2 next and submit it. Do 2 instruments and submit it. And I'll go over that more in detail about how you can create 2 instruments and make them sound in a simple way, like totally strong with emotional impact and ready for the marketplace so you could license them. If you take a step-by-step approach and just go up the stairs of the ladder or walking up the mountain little by little, that's the way that you're going to keep quantity and quality going. Okay. So now we're up. Now we're at the end of advanced productions. This is the top of the ladder, and we have any genre. So it could be hip hop, it could be EDM, it could be anything with a full orchestra. Okay, and then at the very top is any genre plus full orchestra and choir. And so I'm going to actually start with the my accountability this week included one of these tracks at the top of the ladder. And I want to show you what's possible to do in your home studio, and you can keep your eye on the prize and you can work towards this. And I'm going to actually play the track. So I'm going to go to the middle of the track because it starts out kind of soft, and I'm just going to play something that's a bit loud, and I just want to make sure that the quality is okay on your end. So guys, let me know if the volume is okay there. I'll just play it for like 5 seconds. Can you hear that?
Yeah, volume's good.
How is the quality?
High frequencies here.
Yeah, a little thin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a little distorted there.
Was it? Okay, let me turn it down a little bit. Okay, let's see how this goes. So listen to this. It's a little soft at the beginning.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, gonna send a flood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Look out, 'cause here I come. And I'm marching on to the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be seen. I make no apologies. This is me. Another round of sound. I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown the mouth. This is rape, this is bruise, this is who I'm meant to be. This is me.
Woo-hoo!
So there you have it. So this track was submitted on Friday. I had a 5 o'clock Friday deadline. John was actually, I ended up managing my time well enough so that from 1 to 3 in the afternoon, no, from 12 to 2, we had a lesson with John Landells. He does a one-on-one lessons with me. And then right after that, John, I jumped back on and then finished up the final like 2% of tweaking on that track. But it was more than I think it was 483 tracks in my DAW. And that was besides the sub session that I did the vocals on. So the vocals session itself was about 70 tracks. So if I really added them all up, it's like 550 tracks. And it all starts with the basics of mixing. Like if you understand little by little by little by little, and you understand the basics and you don't overwhelm yourself by trying to do too much at one time, because that's what I did in the past. Here's what I did in the past. I did all the wrong ways, and I can take a year to teach you all the wrong ways, but what's nice is I did them. And so now I can tell you what's not a wrong way. And one of the things that was not a wrong way, which is where one day I rolled up my sleeves and I dried off my tears and I, you know, had my bald head from pulling out my hair. Well, I said, okay, I'm going to kind of start over. I'm going to start over. I'm going to see if this works. Rather than quit, I'm going to kind of go from the beginning. And that's when I decided to be a real researcher. So I started researching. And I came up with these different ways of mixing that turned out to be, some of them a bit revolutionary, I was told. And I was telling John during his lesson yesterday that some of these things I didn't share with anybody at first because I was embarrassed, because I thought they were so stupid simple that everybody knew them. I thought everybody knew everything and I was the only one that didn't. And I was discovering these things and I'm thinking, I'm the last one to find this out. Well, it turns out because I did so much research, because one thing that I'm lucky about is that I was able over the last 15 years to spend 90% of my waking hours in the studio researching. That's the only difference between me and anybody else. That's why I can create a track like that in my home studio, is because it was all here in this little bedroom. I mean, I have a little bedroom studio. That's all I have. And that's it. I mean, it's nice, but it's small. And it's like, I told you guys before, I had to pack in, you know, the most singers I could get in here at one time was 5, you know. But then when you listen to that track, it's like, wow, there's like this gospel choir in a church, you know. And you can get that sound, you can get the orchestra, you can get everything. So one of the things that I wanted to go over with you is the top of the ladder, the dream, the thing you can shoot for, the whole picture, the big picture, which is Greg Goss, Knight Berman, Deb Wolf, David Forlano, Sem Van Blurk, Steven Dockendorf, Micheline, Eldon, John, Dale Proctor, Sean Original, Maneko, Angelina, Wendy, you know, that you guys will and girls will be able to become balanced, fulfilled human beings, balancing your lives as a #1 priority goal, so that you can then create music like I showed you there. That's your goal. I put it in the post. You know, the human and spiritual factor is number one. How we react with each other. Can we inspire ourselves? Can we inspire each other? You know, can you wake up and somehow inspire the person across from you? Because that's what you're going to get back. You know, it's these trite things, you know, we talk about karma and all this stuff, but it's so important. It's so important how you are creating your life. Are you creating your life in a balanced way where you're putting out what you want to get back, like the golden rule, right? And if you keep building up on that, that's your foundation. You'll find yourself feeling balanced. You'll find yourself coming into the studio. And even if you have something like, okay, I had something going on last week where somebody was, and this happens when you succeed. As you succeed more and more, sometimes you'll get haters or people trying to attack you or pull you down. It happens, part of life. So I get that from time to time. And the solution to all of that is to prosper, to succeed. The way you get back at people like that are haters, succeed more. So if any of you have anything going on right now, and I want to address it, because here's why, because it's this invisible thing that doesn't get addressed. It's part of the quote I've told it, the revolutionary way I mentor. Well, it just makes sense to me that we all as humans have situations that are good and we have situations that are bad. We have things we do good and things that create bad consequences. And some of those we didn't intend bad consequences, but we did something, we made a mistake, and now we have a bad consequence. And you go into the studio and you're dealing with these things that are kind of like pulling you down. That's where we can succeed or fail, right there. Like the way to succeed is if you've got something pulling you down, even if it's yourself. And I run into this. We all, you know, we're humans. So I run into this. I'll go in there. I can create this kind of thing. Like I have total confidence. Like if you gave me something to create, whatever it is, whatever brief right now, I've done this for enough years, I should be able to. I can create whatever you need. Is it reggae? Is it classical? Is it hip hop? Is it whatever? Give it to me. I'll do it. And I have confidence I can do it. But there are things that happen to me even on any given week, any given day, where I won't be at the top of my game confidence-wise or emotionally or spiritually. And there's only one answer to that. And that is to ignore it and produce. Ignore that negative thing, unless it's literally stopping you from getting to your computer, then you got to deal with it, you know. But you have to just produce. That means go into the studio, and producing also includes learning. That's part of production, is learning. And I love like the spirit of this group, especially like today. I get this thing like I want to become a better producer. I want to do quality. I want quality. Yeah, of course we want quantity. We know that. And the bulk of mentoring out there is about plugins and processes and what you do and how you do this and how you do this. And as I told you guys in the past, I want to address each individual person. Like, okay, let's get you, because there's two ways to do this. You can improve the product, and that's where most of mentoring is. Improving the product or making more of the product, okay? Or, I'll say or, you can improve the person making the product. So if you put your attention on improving the product, you'll only improve the product so much. You won't go above a certain level of quantity and quality. You won't. If you just put your attention on, how do I do this? How do I do it? How do I do this? How do I do this better? How do I do this? You'll only get so far. And if somebody's showing you how to do it, you'll only get so far. Now, we take the person producing the product and we improve that. That's the ear training. That's the enlightenment thing I showed you guys. That's understanding the myths and the brainwashing. Like truly understanding, like, oh, wow, I hear that all the time, but it's not usable. It's not workable. And I'll give you a real life example. So we're going to show something that's actually happened in real life yesterday. I was doing a lesson with John Landells. And John, I want you to, can you, while I'm talking, is it possible to open up that session you were showing me with the routing? Because I want to show in a DAW how this works. This is a really basic, important thing about mixing that can change your mixes forever, starting now. And it's kind of invisible, and it seems to make sense, and it makes no sense. You'll see what I'm talking about. Are you able to do that, John?
It's just opening now.
Awesome. How long will that take, so I know?
Probably a minute.
Okay, good. So I'm going to get into it right now. So here's where you can start taking some notes, which is on routing. And this is kind of a revolutionary look at routing. Not something you'll really see. I haven't seen it taught anywhere. I learned it through research. Sometimes I learn things by accident. This one, I kind of learned it on purpose by researching routing. And as soon as I figured this out, I was able to get, in my situation, vocal tracks accepted for lucrative licensing deals. And speaking of which, I didn't tell you guys, but part of my this last week, I found out, maybe you saw it on Facebook, I found out that I got a placement in my first Netflix placement on Charmed. Yay. That was pretty cool. I was like, hey, you know, and here's the thing, and here, okay, here's the, because I always want to be real with you guys. Here's the good, the bad, and the ugly about licensing. Okay, guess what? So I found out on December 1st that I got a track on Netflix. I'm like, oh, cool, this is awesome. You know, I can't wait to share this on Saturday. And so then I saw it was a vocal track, and then I saw we'd made some pretty good money on it because it's a vocal track. They're more lucrative. And I used this routing technique on that track that I'm about to show you that made it on Netflix. Now, here's the strange thing, and it's going to be this way for a while until they fix it, but I found out on December 1st that I got a track licensed on Netflix on December 8th of 2018. That's part of the licensing world, okay? December 8th of 2018, I got a track on Netflix. So this whole year, I didn't even know that. The only way I could have known it is, well, it's interesting because sometimes it doesn't get picked up on these services. There's services out there that look through the internet to see if you've gotten, and they eluded all of them. I've got all these systems. It eluded all. I looked on TuneFind, where you can go. TuneFind is a good one. And you can look up different composers and stuff and see if you got your tracks on a TV show. So it wasn't on TuneFind. It wasn't on this one, it wasn't on that one. All of a sudden, boom, shows up in a ASCAP statement. And I'm like, oh, cool, it just happened. Because it said December, and I go, it's December 1st. Oh, wow, cool, December. Then it goes, December 8th. I go, it's the 1st. It was 2018. And so now this is very, very important to know about licensing. It's very important to know for this group, which is that relationships can be affected by the slowness of results in licensing. When I say results, I don't mean the results that happened. I mean finding out about the results that happened. Like any of you guys right here or girls that have submitted any music anywhere, okay, right now, could actually be successful and have placements right now. That's possible. My first 2 years of licensing, I had several placements and didn't find out about them until more than a year. It was a year and a half later. And I was getting discouraged. So it's built into the situation right now, the system. They're going to change it with blockchain. It's going to happen. It will happen. There's some companies doing it. It's going to go through all kinds of conniptions before it gets there. And there's people fighting it very hard. There are some publishers, some middlemen that are fighting it. very, very hard. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to show you a basic mixing concept that is very elusive. And when I teach you what's taught and how to do it in a regular way, how everybody does it, it seems to make total sense. And it can actually take the quality of your mix and push it down. It will definitely stop the mix from becoming its potential. It can become potentially much better if you follow what I'm about to show you. So I was going along on this session, this lesson with John Landells yesterday, and he said this one thing, which I heard for years. He goes, "That's cool, Gary, you know how, we can do an aux track for a reverb and then send different things to that one reverb." And he said, and what I did was I sent everything in my mix to this one reverb, and it was like a concert hall reverb because I'm doing this thing that's like an orchestra. So I sent everything to the concert hall to put everything in the same room. And he was explaining it to me and showing it to me, and I was.
Gary was smiling.
But I wanted to hear him out because I wanted to see exactly what he was doing and follow his thinking there so I could help him. And so then he played the track for me. But I heard something before he told me that. He played the track for me and I made notes. And one of the things that I made notes about was that things sounded like they were in different rooms at different parts of the track. They sounded like in different places. Well, how could that be if you're routing everything to the same reverb? A reverb puts it in a room. So if you route everything to this reverb, and you'll hear this taught everywhere.
Can I also add that I'd said to Gary that, the reason I used everything from this same library is because they prided themselves on the fact that they recorded it all in the same room.
Yeah. So watch this. He used a library that was all recorded literally in the same room, like live players. And he sent it all to the same reverb, so it should sound like it's all in the same room. And it doesn't. That doesn't work. That doesn't actually follow common sense, and I'll show you how. Watch this. When you record an orchestra, everybody is sitting in their seats. Now, there may be people in the audience, there may not be. It might be a studio session with no audience, or it might be a live recording. But one thing that's common about all orchestral recordings is that everyone is sitting in their seats. Even if it's a piano and flute, that's all. Maybe it's a piano and flute piece, like the middle movement of a piece, and it's a flute and a piano. Well, not everybody gets up and walks off the stage and then comes back. They sit there. Everyone is in their seat. Now, when they record libraries, and this I found out from research, they rent out these expensive halls, like these are the good libraries, like Spitfire, East West. And these are, you can take notes on that. If you want to get into like the epic productions, and if you want to make those productions sound awesome, if you want to get tears yourself, I cried the first time I opened up my East West library. It was like so inspirational. Because compared to some of the stock orchestral libraries that are in DAWs, these things are like just amazing. So here's how these stock libraries are made. They'll record, let's say, contrabasses, okay? Contrabasses are all on the right side of the stage. When you go see an orchestra, you see the guys standing up with or girls standing up with their basses, and they're on the right side of the stage. And that's where they play. And so, but you've got everybody else in the orchestra sitting down too. And so when you've got everybody else sitting down in the orchestra and you play contrabasses all together, like let's say there could be anywhere from 3 to 8 of them playing, and you can get some really emotional low end going in an orchestra, like wow, especially down in the lower ranges. And whether they're plucking, you get the doom, doom. I mean, it's so emotional. Or the bow, and even the high end, you can play a melody on a contrabass, beautiful melody. So when they make these with these sample libraries, they hire they don't hire the whole orchestra at one time. They hire the basses. The basses come in and they mic them and they play. Okay. Then they hire the trumpets and they come in and they sit there where they sit in the orchestra. And you're thinking, okay, well, that's cool because they're sitting where they sit in the orchestra. So it's going to sound like the orchestra. And then the percussionists come in. And then if they do solos, they have the violin, the first violinist come in. We're going to do a solo sample library, solos. And so they bring in that first violin player and they put him just to the left of the conductor as you're looking at the stage, right there. And he or she plays these different solo passages for their library. And then you put that together in your home studio, you add all those together, and then you send them to one, because they're all in the same room, and then you send them to one reverb. They're all sharing one reverb, and so they should sound like they're in that same room. Now here's the problem. Certain instruments create certain amounts of reverb in a room. Certain ranges of certain instruments create certain amounts of reverb in a room. So if you play a high trumpet, you know, especially like this time of the year, you know, these like fanfares, like Christmas fanfares and trumpets and piccolo trumpets, you know, and you play, and you hear the last note stops and you hear the room just go, you hear the reverb. Okay, if you play a clarinet, like in the lower range, or a cello in certain ranges, and you stop playing where there's a full orchestra, you don't really hear hardly any reverb at all. It's different amounts of reverb. Not only that, but when everybody is sitting in their chairs, it eats up a lot of the reverb. So when you have a full orchestra sitting there, and everybody's playing, when they stop playing, yes, there's reverb in the room, but there's a lot less of it because it's being eaten up by the fact that everybody's sitting in their seats. So people are always asking me this. In fact, I met with David, the head of licensing for Disney and 20th Century Fox. He's my main guy. He's the guy I sent that to, that recording you just heard on Friday. And, you know, he's responsible for me getting paid or not. You know, if this is approved or not. So far, I've had 13 projects since 2013. They've all been approved. They got paid for all of them. So hopefully that's going to continue. And I've got 5 more to go on the current batch. So he asked me when we met in person for the second time. First time was a year and a half ago when I got hired. Then I met him 3 weeks ago. I told you guys about that meeting. And one of the things he told me, he goes, man, you know, you got just the orchestra. Your orchestral recordings are like, they're primo, you know. And so I think he thinks, I mean, we never talked about it, but I think he thinks I go to a soundstage and record an orchestra, because he kept talking about my orchestra. And so what I have the niche for is creating an orchestra that sounds real, it's real. And yet if you buy these sample libraries and just use them, people think, okay, that's it. It's going to sound real, and it doesn't. And there's a number of reasons why. Part of this has to do with routing that applies to all genres. If you're doing hip hop, if you're doing pop, if you're doing Americana, if you're doing singer-songwriter, what I'm about to show you applies to all of it in a huge way. It just so happened that John and I were working on this. If you take all these different sources, okay, you have different sources. You have kick drums. Let's take hip hop. You have a bunch of kick. You have 1,000 kicks that you could choose from. Some of them are boom. Some of them are boom. Okay, those are different sources. One is dry, boom, and one is extremely wet, or maybe an 808 that just booms forever. Boom. Right? And if I'm going to take all these different elements in a mix, and I'm going to take a synthesizer that's going with a boom, and I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to put it all in the same room. I'm going to route it to the same reverb. And it's going to, or not just reverb. I'm told, okay, I'm going to glue my mix together. I'm going to send it all to the same compressor. and it's going to glue my mix together. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's going to glue your mix, but not necessarily together. It might glue your mix apart. Okay? Because you have different sources with different characteristics going into the same location. We'll call it the location. It's a space. It's like taking, like this. It's like taking a room full of people dressed in different color clothes and from different countries, and saying, if I put them all in this room, they're all going to talk more similar, they're all going to look more similar, and they're all going to act more similar. And that's going to glue them together visually and even sonically, how they speak. That's how much it doesn't make sense. And that's a good way to describe this whole characteristic. So what I told John was this. I said, John, instead of sending them all to the same thing, here's what I do. I take all the violins and I route them to a separate aux track with its own reverb. I take all the percussion. In fact, I take the dry percussion and send it to a certain reverb. I take the more wet sources and I send it, but it's all within groups. It's all within groups. And then I route those reverbs to different places depending on how they sound. Routing is an art. It is not a science. Routing is an art. It's not a science. And here's how it works. John, hit Shift H several times. And up on top. Click up on top and hit Shift H also. And take me to your, yes, perfect. Okay, click on that main mix out and hit Shift H. Yeah, bring that up nice and big, and the one above it. Okay, so I want you guys to picture something. Here's main mix out effects, okay? And this is what I set up with John. You don't have to do it this way, but he's trying out some things that I'm showing him. And I tell people, my students, you don't have to follow everything I do, but at least try it. So I'm going to show you something. All right. So here you have, it says main mix out FX, okay? If we look in here, see if this will work this time. Okay. He has some inserts here. So he has his full mix. The full mix goes, and what are those, John? I can't read them. What are those two plugins?
Sorry, we've got Fab Filter, so that's the EQ, and then we've got a compressor on there.
Okay, so basically an EQ and a compressor.
But we've also got this group being fed with the outputs of all of the effects as well.
Yeah.
Separate effects channels are being fed into this.
Right, right. Okay, so here's how people are taught how to mix, you guys and girls. This is how you're taught to mix. Okay, you're taught to mix. If you're going to route your mix, route it all to this one place and then put something on it or don't. So you have two different teachers, two different types of mentors, two different types of philosophies. Many of them, most of them will say this: route everything to this one track, in this case called main mix out effects. And it's going to kind of glue everything together by putting a compressor on it or by putting things on it, whatever. You can put a compressor, you can put in little reverb, you can put some limiting on it, you can put some salt, you can put some pepper, you can put some oil, you can put some vinegar, whatever you're going to, like, put it on there and toss it around in your salad and glue it together, and it's going to sound great. Okay? So that's mostly how it's taught by mentors or teachers or colleagues or whoever that say, this is the way you mix, it's going to sound great. And that is not true. Okay, then there's another thing, and I'll show you the truth in a minute. There's another way. Now this one's called main mix out final, no effects, all right? And now I see something on here.
Yeah, it's still got the inserts, but it's got none of the effects are actually routed to that one.
Oh, I see how you did it. Okay.
So I don't think those are actually doing anything. They're just on flat.
Okay, good. So I'll just turn them off for now. So for visually, so you can get an idea of this. Now you have another set of a school of thought. You have other teachers that will teach you this. They'll say, do all your effects in your individual tracks. And when you send it to your stereo bus out or your main mix out, whatever you want to call it, the funnel where you're capturing your mix, don't put any effects on it. So there are people that mix that way. They get great sounding mixes. You can get great sounding mixes both ways. And they'll teach you, don't put anything on your main mix out. When you're going to put effects on your entire mix, do it in the mastering stage. Don't do it in the mixing stage. Okay, so right there, that for me, that caused all kinds of confusion because I saw successful people telling me, don't put anything on your main bus out. And I saw successful people telling me, other people telling me, always put a compressor on there, always glue your mix together. So then I did some research and I found out that the truth is that routing is an art. It's not a science. And the way to create art and to create the best possible mix out of your track is to do both. Do both and give yourself an option. So here's what I do. And the first time I did it, this is when I got a lucrative licensing placement with a vocal track. Up to then, I got no vocal tracks placed. And I listened back to those vocal tracks that I was submitting for licensing, and I could see why. Like, I compared it to this thing I'm about to show you, and they didn't sound like records. They just, the singers, some of them were really good, but the mixes just weren't cutting it. Somehow I was stopping the emotion of the singer. I was good at that for a while. Okay, you gave me a great singer, I'll ruin them. Okay, that's what I was good at. And then I became more friends with singers because then I was getting some money made and they were getting their name out and they had stuff to put on their show reels and they were like, hey, I want you to produce me. How did I do it? I gave myself an option. I created a type of artistic routing where you set up two final AUX tracks or group tracks or whatever it is in your DAW. So I'll say this first, is that it's important, I think, it's vital actually, to set up your own stereo bus out when you route. Set it up yourself. Don't go straight to the DAW stereo bus out. Collect everything up and capture it before it gets to the stereo bus out. Why? Because then you can A/B without sending your reference tracks through those same effects. Because the reference tracks are going to the stereo bus out clean, you know, and your mix is going straight to the stereo bus out, and now you have apples and apples. If you put your compressor on your stereo bus out of your DAW, then your reference tracks are going to go through that. Like if it's a compressor, now your reference track's going to go through a compressor, and it's not going to be a reference track anymore. You just ruined it. So that's why, number one, we use our own stereo bus out. So I did that for a long time and my mixes got better. And then the light bulb went off. I said, hey, you know, I was listening to both these people. They were both successful. And I said, what if I did both at the same time? So I set up a main mix out FX, and then that was routed to a second AUX. You see here, it goes main mix out final. This one, which is where the whole mix comes in, gets routed to this final one up here. And the final one, see if I can open it. It's hard to open these from here. There, has no effects. These are turned off. It has no effects, nothing. It's at 0, nothing. And it goes straight to the stereo out. So to repeat, if you set up in your DAW on your next mix, a main mix out with effects and a main mix out no effects, which is the final, and the main mix out effects gets routed to the final, and the final goes to stereo out. So how does this work? How do we use this artistically? Here's how. And this is not a rule. This is not an always. This is not a forever. This is not a must do. You must do this. This is a rule of thumb. I'm going to call it a rule of thumb. And that is this. Here's a rule of thumb. Certain instruments, when they're glued together in the entire mix, they sound good. But if you took them out of that glue and let them go without going to that whole group of whatever's being compressed, and you kind of unplug it, unglue it, and route it direct to this track right here. Okay? So follow this. Let's say that you had this cello track right here, and the cello was routed to the main mix and it was being glued, and it was inside of everything else. And it was a solo cello part. Okay? Well, I started applying art to mixing by doing this. I said, hey, what if I took that cello and instead of routing it to my main mix out in the compressor, what if I bypassed, skipped this, and routed that cello direct to the main mix out with no effects, no compressor? Is it going to sound any different? Is it going to feel any better? Is it going to be more emotional? Is it going to create more emotional impact? So the first time I did it, this track here was a vocal. It was the lead vocal. And the second that I changed the routing and put it straight to the main mix out and kind of unhooked it, unleashed it, let it be free from the compression of the glue, all of a sudden I almost fell over backwards on my chair. I said, I've been trying to make mixes sound like that way for 5 years. It was amazing. The vocal, like, just was like a record. I mean, it's the best way I can describe it to you. It sounded awesome. It wasn't being squished down and glued together with everything else. It was riding on top of the mix. It was breathing. I could hear the breaths. I could see when the singer was smiling. I could feel the emotional impact. When they really dug into the track, and it was just kind of breathing above the whole mix. And so I'm going to play for you now an example of it, just the intro, you know, of that track that I played for you that I just submitted on Friday. Okay. This is an example. So you can stop sharing for a moment. Thank you. And let me do this. Okay.
Hey, Gary, when you're done with that, I have a quick question about all of this, if you don't mind.
You can ask now.
And it might just be a logic thing too. I'm not really sure how to create my own stereo out mix. I think I'm getting the concept is some of those things are going to be compressed and some of them aren't. That's why you have two. But I don't know how to create that. Is that something you can show?
Well, actually, you're partway there already, if not all the way there.
Okay.
You know how Greg helped you create an aux track for reverb?
Yes.
You just create an aux track for your entire mix.
And we're going to send everything, almost everything. However, whatever we feel like needs to be compressed will go there, and then another one, and not everything, and nothing, no effects.
Yes, and it's like an echelon also. So when I say everything goes there, normally what happens is all your guitars, let's say, go to a guitar group, guitar aux, right? And then that group goes to either of those two mixes.
So one of them really could be the default stereo mix out, but we just need to move things if that is, or no?
Say that question again.
You said not to use the default stereo mix out?
In your DAW.
Yes.
Yeah, don't send your mix straight there. Even
But
if you have a bunch.
it could be one of the two outs. I don't have to create two separate ones. I could use that as one of them and then create another one. And some of them go to the default one and some.
No, and I'll tell you why. I suggest no.
Okay.
I suggest to always have a final one there,
Okay.
because otherwise you're going to be sending some instruments straight to your stereo bus out, and you may want to turn down your entire mix.
Okay.
And if you turn down the stereo out, you're going to be affecting the reference track now.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So I would say, and this is just, I'm apprenticing you guys right now. And when I say apprenticing you, what I mean is I'm never going to tell you you have to do something or that you should do your art this way, because I'm talking about art right now. This is the art of mixing. And so I'm not going to ever tell you guys and girls, I'm not going to ever say, do it this way. You've got to set it up this way. If you don't set it up this way, it's going to suck. You're not going to succeed if you don't do it this way. No, that's not true. I'm saying, I'm apprenticing you. I'm saying, hey, this is how I think. This is what I found out. This is what I do, and I have a certain amount of success at it. And I would love for you guys to try it out and research it. I want you to be a researcher. Even more than a student, I want you to be a researcher. That's a more active role than a student. It's an active student, a researcher. I want you to research this setup. And then like next week, if you have time to do this in any of your mixes, I want to hear the results, the findings of your research. That's what I'm interested in. Okay, so now let's listen to this intro. Okay, so I got it set up. Okay. And listen to the vocal track here.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious.
Okay. So that vocal right there, I used two different techniques that you guys now know. Deb, when we were in your DAW last week and I showed you how to do sidechain compression of reverb. So I used that on that vocal. I had a little bit of reverb on the vocal already, just a touch of it, and then I sent it to a reverb that I sidechain compressed. But then I took all of that. I took all of it. I took the reverb and the lead vocal, and I took it outside of the glue, but I A/B'd it. I don't just do it and go, it's going to sound better, because it doesn't always sound better. Why doesn't it always sound better? That's the question. Like, I researched that, because the first one I went, oh, I figured it out now. Every one of my tracks, I'm going to route the vocal outside, and it's going to sound like a record, because that's what happened right now. And so I started doing it, and then I went, wait a minute, let me just, and sometimes it sounded better glued. Why? I wanted to know that. Why? How come I can't come up with a science of mixing? That's what I wanted. I think that's what it, what's that?
Depend on the instruments that were in the track, in the mix?
Yes, it depends on 1,000 things. Every track is a snowflake. What do you know about snowflakes? Each one is different. There's billions, trillions, gazillions of snowflakes, and they still haven't found two that are the same. Hasn't been done. Like that, to me, that blows me away. Just the mathematics of it. How is that? Just, that's how your music is. That's how your music is. So if you start your mixing saying, I don't have any ideas about this mix, that's the best, to me, that's the best thing you could do. I told John this yesterday. I said, people mix with ideas and then they paint themselves into a corner and they don't get the potential quality of their mix. They don't achieve it. They might get a great mix, but it could be a masterpiece mix that they're missing. Even if it's one instrument, maybe, okay, one instrument, Deb, piano, and it has a little reverb on it. And I set up 2 tracks, the mix with effects, the mix without. And I send the piano and the reverb to the mix with effects and put it in a compressor, and I turn it in. Then I tried, hey, what if I took the reverb and put it to the final one without the compressor? And it might go, whoa, just that little extra thing gave me a chill, the way the reverb acted that way. Or maybe I did the other way around. I tried the reverb through the compressor and I put the piano up there. Maybe that's the, whoa, I'm looking for that, whoa, that's awesome. That's what every artist does, whether you're a sculptor, they're going like, whoa, look what I created. And they created that how? They rolled up their sleeves and they worked at it. So what I'm trying to do is, like when I'm working at that, I set up my routing stuff so I'm working like this. Like a ninja. It doesn't take a long time to create a masterpiece recording. It takes longer than a crap recording. You can't take time out of mixing and create masterpiece recordings. Sorry. You can't. You can't. You can create a good mix. You can create a great mix. You can. You want a masterpiece recording? You're gonna have to have some discipline. You're gonna have to spend some time on certain things. You have to inject time into it. But how do you take away the wasted time? That's what I'm interested in. I mean, I could have easily canceled John's lesson yesterday. Easily, you know. It was the final day, it was 5 o'clock. I had that mix, which I played for you, and it wasn't up to where it was just then. It wasn't. And I ended his lesson at 2 o'clock. I had 3 hours. And you talk about a ninja. I probably looked like I was on 5x speed on YouTube. You know, but I was also very careful. I was very careful, and I knew when to do this. You know, I'm going, and I knew when to go. Hold on, hold on, hold on. I went in the corner and I listened to the low end, and I just relaxed, and I relaxed. But I was being a ninja. I was being a fast ninja by relaxing and doing something right the first time. Because then I didn't waste time. I didn't get an immediate like, Gara, this mix is like, it's not happening. You know, I got the 2 thumbs up. So there's ways to save time that take time. Hey, that's a good one. There's ways to save time that take time. See, I love teaching because I learned so much. I would have never learned that without trying to share this with you. You know, there's ways to save time that take time. I love that one. Wow. I'm like, I got to process that myself. So this is one of those ways, because here's what I do while I'm mixing. While I'm mixing, I take the time to experiment. And here's what I found. This is just research findings, and it's not a rule. It doesn't always work, but this is a rule of thumb. I found that bass guitars, kick drums, snare drums, and vocals are the subjects of what sometimes make a dramatic difference in routing outside the glue. Sometimes, like, because I compile research, I took statistics of which are there instruments that tend to make dramatic differences to my mix and sound like records when I go outside the glue. Yes, there are actually. And the answer came back yes for my research. Kick drums, bass guitars, snare drums, and vocals. Those are the ones that more often than others, when I route them outside and skip the glue and go up here to the final, where they'll make a dramatic difference to my mix. That's followed by effects, sometimes effects. So Deb, you know how we routed your reverb to an aux? Okay, where does that go? Where do you route that now? That's an art. You could route that reverb into the glue, or you can route that reverb outside the glue. It's going to act differently. It's going to sound differently. It's going to, more importantly, feel differently. It's going to have a different spiritual impact, different emotional impact. And so by teaching this to you, what I'm doing is I'm addressing the person who produces the product. Because I'm not showing you a process. I'm showing you how to wear your hat as an artist and experiment and research while you're mixing. Like when I figured this out, I was so excited. I mean, I did what I usually do and what most people do. When I learned something, I pendulum swung and I stopped researching, which is really a big mistake. You know, I figured I found science. I thought I found science of mixing, and I didn't. What I realized was I found art. I found art. And when you find art, that takes work. It takes work. It takes some time. But if you do it as quickly as possible and you do it right the first time, you'll save time in the long run and your quality will be incredible. John, did you have a chance to try any of that out yet? I know you were struggling with the other stuff.
No, I was struggling with this stuff today.
Yeah, which is, you know, we talked about that before, like, you know, technical computer stuff, like, you know.
I'm just thankful there isn't a window in my studio because some things would have gone out of it today.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, John, I got an SSD, like you said, but it was only a 1 terabyte, not 2, because that sale made them sell out, I guess.
That's wow. You'll see a big improvement though of your other drive.
Yeah. So, so does anyone have any questions on this routing and this concept and the idea of using art and being an artist while you're mixing? I'd say the balance is you have to be half scientist and half artist, and the artist wins. Artist gets the last say. So any comments, any questions?
I have a question, John.
Go ahead. That's a question.
Go ahead.
You differentiated between the producer's hat and the engineer's hat. So the producer is more like the artist and the engineer is more like the scientist.
Correct. Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
I have one, if I may. I've read a lot saying, you know, don't put effects on that track. Like, don't put things on the individual track because it'll cause a lot of CPU bog down and everything. But I often find that that's where it sounds the best is, you know, not to put, I mean, of course, there's going to be stuff on the auxes as well, but is it, I'm guessing it's not strictly wrong unless your system starts bogging down, but to have effects on just a specific track.
The only time that becomes wrong, I would say this, Dale, and he brings up a good point. Okay, let's say I'm in my computer and it sounds good when I put a compressor on my cello and I route it to a cello group with other cellos, and it sounds great when I'm using a compressor there too, let's say. Okay, it just sounds great. So if it sounds great, it's not wrong. So that's the rule that always applies. That's one of those rules that always apply. If it sounds good, it's not wrong.
Right.
Okay. Now here's where it becomes wrong. If someone is running into CPU trouble and they can't afford to fix that, okay, there's something wrong there. They're not living a balanced life.
Right.
They need to get out of, they need to actually take off the producer hat, the artist hat, the engineer hat, and the every hat and put on their own adult responsibility hat.
Mm-hmm.
And say, wait a minute, something's wrong here. If I can't afford to do this right, and it's wrong for me to actually be able to be an artist and experiment, then I have to address like my life as a balanced approach to everything I'm doing. And so there's something that's wrong. Something's wrong there. If
What
you're
about,
using, yeah.
sorry, what about in the case, because I haven't made any stems yet, and I did take notice of one of your comments about, you know, this can't just sound good as a whole. You have to listen to just that, like just, let's say, the strings. Does that sound good by itself? Or, because, you know, I often tried to cover up mistakes with other things, like we need a canon right here because, okay, perfect, now I can't hear it anymore, carry on. But with treating individual tracks with different effects, let's say then I go and listen to the stems, am I going to get surprised, do you think? Because now that violin doesn't sound like the rest of them. Or I'm just, you know, thinking for the future, is there something that I can fix now and save myself grief later?
Yeah, great question. Which is, the stems are now becoming more and more products. Like okay, I'm sending 99 files to Who's the Boss, you know, library this week for Aaron from 11 songs we did. And more these stems are being used as finished products. So now there's a change in the industry that's recently occurred, which is before stems weren't mastered. Now more and more stems are being mastered because they're just the bass track is being put onto the film or put onto the TV or put onto the commercial. Where before stems were only used as a tool for the final music editor. Okay. Now they're more and more becoming finished products. And it's an interesting trend that to me it should have started a long time ago, but it's just for whatever reason it's catching on now. Music editors are, you know, under more and more pressure. There's more shows. There's more, like, there are only so many music editors, and many times they have more than one show, and so they're becoming like more stressed themselves. And now they need products that are finished that they can use, that they don't have to fiddle with, that they don't have to master. So there's a change, Dale. There's a change, which is now the stem files become, since they're more like finished products, it's more important that they sound more musical. So yes, so you have a challenge on your hand. And that's why all these different approaches that I'm taking now, they will equal more musical sounding and finished product sounding stems. And if you think that way, it's a great question. Start thinking that way and you'll rise above the competition. Because when you turn in, like, you know, David, last week you had to do like I did this week, like 90, you know, sub mixes and stuff. As we go on week to week, I'm going to show you all these things add up to you creating stem files that are more musical. So there are a number of steps you have to take. I can't really do it in 3 minutes or 2 minutes, but we're going to go over that definitely in the coming weeks for sure.
Can I just add
thank you very much.
Barry?
What's that?
Just if I could add something to that. Dale, my compositions in the past have been very much get something, if it sounds okay, it'll do. And I'd been quite happy producing something and getting it finished. And sometimes you'd listen to it and you go, oh, that note was a little bit loud. And rather than go all the way back and fix the MIDI, I would either just try and mask it or maybe just stick a bit of compressor on, so to compress everything in that track. And one of the things that I'm learning with Gary is it really is worth the effort to go right back down to the MIDI. Even if I've bounced it to audio, go back to the MIDI, follow all the steps again if I have to get it right. Because you know what? If I don't get it right, Gary will hear it and call me out on it.
Right, or that might be something that really jumps out tenfold in the stems.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't have any cover fire.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think even beyond that and above that, John, share with them what you shared with me on how that spills over into your life.
Yeah, so I'd been brought up pretty much like that. You know, it'll do. It's good enough. As long as it's good enough to get you by, then carry on with it. What I've found is that as Gary's been encouraging me to just keep going back and not accept good enough, to actually strive for that masterpiece recording, I've noticed that in my job, I'm striving for that masterpiece all the time. And it's not striving for perfection, because I think perfection can be unrealistic, but it's striving for the best. And I've found that it's just had this massive overspill into my life, and I'm being more successful at everything I do.
That's awesome. See, that's music to my ears. Yes.
That should be your marketing slogan.
No, that's awesome because you see how it feeds into each other. Like, I'm showing John some stuff about music, and then it's improving his life. And then when he comes back into the studio, it's going to make his music better because his life is going better. It's more balanced. He'll make more money. He'll be able to upgrade if his CPU goes down. You see what I mean? And so it all fits into each other. One of the things that I wanted to do, thank you, John, for that. That's awesome. One of the things that I really wanted to do today, that it's okay, I mean, we will get to it next week, but you know, the video that I sent out to you guys, I think Knight, you made quite a comment about that. What did you think?
I was weeping on the floor. It was so powerful, just the way that he you know, just the emotion that he brought from the music, and the way that the guy playing the cello, you know, he knew, the guy playing the cello knew about the song, but he didn't know the true history about the death. And once he knew that, and just to see how, I don't know, it's just amazing. It was phenomenal. It just was a whole nother level of things. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
No, that's awesome. And it is a whole other level of things. And that's where I want to take each one of you to this whole new level of the emotional and spiritual aspect to what we're doing. And that guy, to me, in that video, embodies and shows the intention and the actions and the communication skills that you will achieve by learning step by step. Learning step by step. Don't go too much at one time. And that your confidence will then grow so strong. It'll go so strong. And that's what that guy had, to me, Knight. You know what he had? He had the education and the knowledge of what he was talking about, which gave him that confidence. And when you have that confidence, you start to animate yourself and other people. You inspire yourself, you inspire other people. It's from the knowledge and then the practice of that knowledge. But when you get the right knowledge and you get the truth, okay, you know, like this routing thing, I'm so excited to share that, because when people start using it, and then I talk to them the next week, and it's almost like talking to a new person. They're like, hey, I did this and I did that. No. Yeah, I got to tell you another thing. And the week before that, they were like, yeah, how do I do that thing? What is that? You know what I mean? It's like, I see that confidence. Now we're addressing the person creating the product, not just the product. And that's probably the biggest thing that I wanted you guys to take away from today is I wanted you to have something that helped improve you as the creator. And then guess what? Your tracks are going to sound awesome. Even if I don't give you 100 things, I could give you all those 100 things of what to do. And your tracks won't necessarily sound awesome. But if I can give you something that you can say, oh, I'm improving myself. I can now be an artist in mix. Hey, let me try this. Let me experiment. Whoa. Okay, then now your mixes are going to sound awesome, even if you only know a few little tricks. Okay. So any last closing questions, or it's that time, isn't it? Man, time flies.
I actually had one quick question, and hopefully it'll be quick.
Okay.
In the orchestra setting that you were talking about, if you pan like the flutes to the right and the clarinets to the left, will that also help, or no? Is that like something not even considered?
That's something that's an art. And so if you pan the flutes to the right and they sound better, then they sound better, and leave them that way.
Okay.
Literally, I mean, literally.
Orchestra,
Yeah. Yeah, now I'll give you the science. Watch this. I'll give you the science and the art. Here's the science. There are 3 schools of panning. One is LCR, left, center, and right. We talked about this a little bit, but I'll just for your question. LCR is left, center, right. Everything is either hard left, hard right, or center. And those mixes can sound awesome. Then there's another school of thought on panning, which is creative panning. You know, like 23.5 degrees right on the snare drum and 11 degrees left on the hi-hat. Oh boy, that sounds like a real set. I can picture the guy. You know, that's another idea, another approach. It's another school of thought of panning. And then there's the third, which is hybrid, where you do creative panning and LCR. And sometimes, by the way, creative panning can be no panning. Some mixes sound awesome with no panning. How could that be? Some of the best, like, iconic drum recordings ever made are mono. Some tracks that are amazing are mono. You know, like George Martin and the Beatles, and you know, even like EDM, a lot of DJs now and EDM producers, you know, their mono mixes are the ones that they love the most. And they obviously they have to have a mono mix for clubs. I covered this before, you know, that there's this thing, it keeps going back and forth in the industry. And they'll probably do this like a metronome forever. You know, like in Florida and other places recently, they tried it again, like in 2017, 2018. They tried to create these stereo clubs and have stereo mixes and told the DJs, bring in all your effects and stereos. And their alcohol sales went down and the number of people coming into the clubs went down again. It was another failed experiment because Mary's on the left side of the stage and she doesn't hear the synthesizer that she knows in her car. And John's on this side and he didn't hear that vocal background thing that he hears in his car, and he left. He goes, the sound system sucks, or it just something happened and he left, right? He didn't get the product that he was used to. So they went back in 2019, go to Florida, you know, where there's like, you know, that's like one of the hearts of EDM, and mono clubs, mono mixes, you know, they sound awesome. So part of creative panning can be no panning. That's creative. That's a creative decision. I'm not going to pan anything. I just like the way it sounds now. Sounds great. I love it. Leave it alone. I've done that with some mixes. I went to start panning and I'm like, that doesn't sound as good. I lost my chills. And I go, yeah, but it's not so wide. So I put it back to the center. I got chills. So what am I going to do? Put it over there just because it's wider? You know, I put it back here. It's the emotional and spiritual aspect of it. So with orchestration, with the flute and all that stuff, there's a creative aspect to panning in an orchestra, which is called natural panning. And that is to place everything where they sit on the stage. That comes under creative panning. And some people mix that way. You listen to soundtracks, listen to soundtracks. Some orchestras, the low end is on the right side, coming from your right speaker, because that's where they are on the stage. Some of them are mono, right in the center, like a more modern mix. They both sound great. And then you'll get people say this, don't change where the basses are, ever, when you're doing an orchestra. If they're on the right side of the stage, put them on the right side, or it's not going to sound like an orchestra. It's not going to sound as good. It's not going to give you the chills, that's just BS. You know, you're not, now you're being a scientist, you're being an engineer, making a decision that the artist and the producer should be making. The producer should always say this, try it in the center, try it on the side, try it in the center, try it on the side. We're going with the center. That's the producer. Okay, because he's stepping back, looking at the big picture, and he's experimenting, and he's more of the artist. And the engineer has the white coat on, and he's got all you can see is his feet because his head's in the rabbit hole. Does that help? Does that answer that?
Yeah.
And just add on there as well, get to know your libraries, Deb, because every orchestral library I've found is different. Some of them give you every instrument right in the middle. others do that natural panning that Gary was talking about without you touching the pan control. So if you say, well, actually, I want my violins to the left, and they're already to the left, you can end up panning them much further than you intend to.
Which can change the color of the instrument too sometimes.
Exactly.
So
I found
panning
that
isn't,
out the hard way.
yeah, see, panning, by the way, I should add this, panning isn't just where it is. It can change the character of the sound. And I'll go over the science of that later, but it can change the character of the sound and the emotional impact of that sound. Yeah. All right. What do you guys think?
Fantastic info, Gary.
Yeah, I love
Gary,
that. And I
thank you
learned
very
something
much.
today too. I learned something. I'm gonna have to go watch the replay to see what I said about that thing with the, what did I say? About the time. Yeah, I'm gonna watch it again.
You
Take
said
time to save
there's
time.
a way to save time by there's a way to save time by taking time.
Yeah, yeah, taking the time. Yeah.
It's
And that's
similar
it.
to you got to spend money to make money, so you just change that to time.
Yeah, yeah, but it's a point of integrity. You know, it takes those gray clouds away I talked about, right? When you're mixing, put some sunshine there. All right, guys, I'm sorry that we weren't able to listen to anybody's music today. You know, I definitely want to keep that a part of the masterminds, and we'll keep that in, David. I think if we work out, Deb, your idea of keeping the accountability at a fast clip and everybody answers quickly, and we go through that, I think we'll be able to fit everything in then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Well, great
and girls.
stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything. I'm gonna post the template up in the same page, and I'm gonna rearrange it a little bit to add the factors that Deb talked about, and can't wait to see everybody next week and apply some of the stuff you've been teaching, Gary. Thanks.
You're welcome. Special thanks to John Landells for actually putting up money to get this particular Zoom account so that we didn't have to go off and on anymore.
Thank you, John.
Gary, can you confirm with Aaron, please, whether he wants YouTube links or Zoom links?
I will.
I've asked him, but not had a response.
Okay, I'll ask him. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a great week. And remember, Friday the 13th is lucky, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.